You're listening to the PT Pintcast, where smart people in healthcare come to make noise. Here's your host, Jimmy McKay. You're listening to the PT Pintcast, where smart people in healthcare come to make noise. Here's your host, Jimmy McKay.
Before we kick things off, big thanks to Empower EMR. If your clinic is stuck in an EMR that slows you down, Empower gives you speed, clean workflows, and features clinics actually asked for. Better notes, faster documentation, smoother operations, all wrapped in customer support that doesn't ghost you. Upgrade your clinic's brain with Empower EMR. That's empoweremr.com, empoweremr.com. Today's conversation is live, unedited, and intentional. My guest is a clinic owner, outspoken advocate, and someone aligned with UPTA, a new organization entering the advocacy space in our profession of physical therapy. You may have seen some passionate threads online, comments, words. This episode is about slowing down, asking direct questions, and getting real clarity. What exactly is UPTA building? How's it different? What's the tactical plan, not just the critique? Today isn't about right. It's about making room for questions that deserve real answers. Let's bring in our guest, Dr. Steve Ryland. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jimmy. Good morning. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
And you are in the sunny state of Florida. Do I have that right?
Yeah, sunny state of Florida, yes.
You are smarter than me. I'm in upstate New York, so it's about freezing. Let's kick this off with looking back a little bit. When did you start feeling like something was missing from how PTs are represented professionally? Was there a moment? Was it just an era? Like, when did you start to feel a shift that this, whatever it is now, it didn't feel like it used to be?
Yeah, and I would say that was, I hate using the word pre-COVID, but I would say pre-COVID, because let's be honest, COVID really changed the trajectory of all healthcare. But, even before then, started seeing something. I think it was like back in the mid, 2015 timeframe when, that was when things were really changing and dynamics were changing. And, go all the way back to 2011 with, changing different things and policy with Medicare and, that's basically it. It's been coming on for over a decade.
So what was it? I graduated in 2016. So what was it? Was it culture? Was it rules? It's probably never going to be one thing, right? It's got to be a mix.
It's you talk to any, and I'll focus. I've been in pretty much private practice. I've run a inpatient rehab. I was the CEO of a 69-bed inpatient rehab facility. I was the COO of a 180-bed acute hospital. So, I've done PT, I've done the other side, I've done a lot of admin, I've treated a lot of patients through the years. And it comes down to policy, policy with these insurance carriers, the way that we're not allowed to dictate the care anymore. I feel like we've kind of lost connection with that. A patient comes to our facility, we're being told, you got to get pre-authorization. You've got to get we all know physical therapy. There's no denying that physical therapy saves money, right? Why are we not getting the recognition that we deserve? And I just want to make this perfectly clear. I've been very vocal about the APTA. I support the APTA, not financially, but again, I just want to give a shout out. I know those guys, they're in the grunt like we are every day. They're fighting the good fight like we are. Do I feel like there's a hole? Yeah. And that's, nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to hit the nail right on the head, but I think that's why the UPTA came to light. Was we felt the private practice area, we just felt like we weren't, hey, we're over here, things have dragged. This is my second time doing private practice. So when I came back, things were a lot different, especially reimbursement, policies, reimbursement, audits, all-time high.
We can talk about that.
I don't know a single PT right now in the last 2 years that is either not in an audit or has gone through a TPE audit.
So what was it that made you decide that UPTA was the vehicle for that change instead of working with APTA? Because starting a new association is not easy. There's work involved. Like this is effort. There's a lot of effort. So what made you sort of decide UPTA is going to be the vehicle for that change instead of APTA?
I felt like they had a bigger hold on what was going, because UPTA is mostly made up of private practice members, right? We're the guys that are in the grunt right now. We're the guys dealing with the daily issues. We're the ones going through the TPE audits. We're the ones training the MAC contractors, believe it or not. They call it TPE. For those of you out there who haven't been through a TPE, it's targeted, probe, and educate. Well, the last part of that is the educate. We're doing the educating. Unfortunately, the Macs still don't know what their own policy is, and that's sad. So, that's why, I started seeing Scott Gardner. He's our president.
Mhm.
I started seeing some of his posts on social media, and, I reached out to Scott because, I went through an audit. And one of the things, I believe it was a audio cast that Scott had put out for the UPTA. And on that audio cast, they had their company from out West who does compliance. I'm sorry, I can't remember the acronyms right now, but I think it was BCMS. And, during that conversation, Scott talked about, being through all these audits. And I was like, holy moly, here's a guy who's been, just beat up by his Mac contractor. So I reached out to him, I got it. Him and I had a phone call. And when we talked, we just felt like we had a lot of the same. And I said, hey, if you ever need, it wasn't him reaching out to me. It was me reaching out to him. I said, I'm going through an audit right now. And he helped me with that. I'm fortunate to say I came out of that audit without any findings, but it's not fun, especially through Christmas. It's like, I want to enjoy Christmas with my family. And I've got these Medicare auditors asking me for all these charts,
Yeah. That can be frustrating. So I see no disalignment there. I think people are pretty aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Many UPTA supporters understandably have frustrations with these processes and with APTA.
Yes.
Noticeably, a lot of energy online isn't spent talking about what UPTA is building. It's spent criticizing what APTA is doing or how it does it. My question to you as a member, don't you worry that tone or constant comparison could actually underline the mission that you're on?
Yeah. And I get it though, because I'm one of them. So I understand it. There's emotion, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we say things online that, I've always told my staff, if you have a problem, don't send it an email, don't send it a text message, because it's very hard to understand the tone of that, right? Come to me in person. Let's talk it out. Let's hash it out. So am I going to say we're not guilty? Absolutely not. I'm not going to say that. There's times where yesterday morning, and I think that's what triggered this. I saw something that the APTA posted, and I made a very reactionary post. As you know, I deleted it, but you, of course, have seen it before I deleted it because you responded to it. But, there's times where emotion gets the better of you. And I think that's just the state of private practice right now. And I want to say this, I believe it's more than, because again, I've been in this position where I've not just been in private practice. I've been in other facilities, and it's PT in general. And let's not discount occupational therapists and speech therapists as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're all in this together. And that's what I really want us to get out of this. So it can be seen and it can be portrayed as we're attacking the APTA, but I can honestly tell you behind the scenes now, there's communication between the UPTA and the APTA. And I think that's healthy. I think that's really good. And I think and that's what we need collaboration.
Yeah, agreed.
And I have to say, honestly, you and I may not see eye to eye. There's been time, but I really appreciate you bringing me on this. And I really appreciate you being professional and having me on here. And I've listened to your podcast. I like your podcast. I think you're doing a great thing.
Thanks.
And I think we need to do this more.
Cool. I mean, listen, this is what I do. I'll do it more. Don't threaten me with fun. You've said burnout isn't a personal failure. It's a system design problem. Can you remember a time in your career when that became clear? Like when you were like, hey, as a person practicing, when that happened. So it's, I think that's a really bold statement. Burnout isn't personal. This is a result of a system problem that we're unfortunately all in. So do you remember when that became kind of clear and you sort of became had that emotion?
Yeah. Again, right. Going back to, again, I'm going to go back to it. Their audits are all, we are a hanging fruit. Mac auditors do not see us as a friend. They're going to say that, and they're going to say, hey, these targeted probe and educate, we're here to help. Let's be honest. They're there to basically, we're pickable right now, and they're picking on us because I can tell you from being through it. Now, I will say my Mac auditor here in Florida, we're First Coast Service Options. She was highly professional. In fact, she called me. She goes, listen, I've been doing this for 15 years. You're the first time, and again, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I found this to be quite intriguing. She said, you're the first person in 15 years that I haven't had to get on the phone and say, hey, you forgot to send me the progress note for this date, or hey, you forgot to send me the sign. She said everything was organized, everything was together, and she said, No findings. Congratulations. You're free for a year. Okay, great. I'm free for a year. So
Yeah.
I get to look forward to it again. Yay.
Right. But the fact you have to do it is still frustrating and emotionally taxing and taxing on your business.
Yeah. And I kept her number. I appreciated that she gave me her personal number and she said, if we can work together, let's do it. But what I can tell you from a PT standpoint, private practice, that's not the case in all of these. There's other therapists I talk to right now where they're going through. In fact, I got a friend right down the road who's going through up in St. Augustine, about 2 hours north of me here. He reached out to me late last night, and he just went through an audit, but he had to tell his, unfortunately, let's go back to January 1st, 2025, when everybody said, hey, we got this win. And don't get me wrong. I know the intentions were good on this. If you get a referral from a physician or an NPP, and it's got the date, it's got the signature that's legible, and it says PT or OT or speech or whatever you want to do for that patient. And, that's, you now do the eval, you do your plan of care, you send that plan of care. Don't forget, that's the important part. You have to send that plan of care to that referring provider. They don't have to sign it, but you got to send it within 30 days. With that being said, a lot of the MACs still don't know that. Where's your signed plan of care? That's a system problem. So these are the frustrations. I have a full-time person sitting in this office. That's all they do is track down signed plan of care.
You got to pay that person, and that's all they do.
That's all they do. Well, not only that, I mean, we have a full compliance plan. I've been down this road. So and a shout out to Rick Wanda. Wouldn't want to do his job. Really would not want to do his job. Rick and I have not always seen eye to eye. I'm still a gold member of Rick. I still listen to Rick's stuff. He has a job. He serves a very important, but why should we even be in that arena? Why should we be having to fight? And that's where I feel like we're climbing up a rock hill with no support and one slip and we're going to go.
Don't disagree. So when all you have is a hammer, the world is full of nails. So Jimmy worked in radio for 15 years. So I look at things, I look at words.
Yeah.
So I gave this lesson, a mini lesson, not like I'm giving you a lesson, but I'll just say what I taught. I think a lot of disagreements that happen in the comments section happen because of something very basic. Yes. And this is like almost kindergarten level, which makes it simple, not easy. When someone is expressing frustrations, that's an emotion.
Yes.
And when someone else is coming back with something tangible or logic, both of those things can be true, and you are now talking past each other. I love there's a GIF out there that shows a chain link fence and two Dobermans on one side barking at another dog, a golden retriever on the other side, and all of a sudden the chain link, they're barking through the fence, and all of a sudden the chain link fence slides out of the way, and then they both just sort of stare at each other.
Yep.
Neither is wrong, except people want to be seen, heard, and understood.
Yep.
So if I'm been an APTA member for a long time, I hold them accountable every 12 months, as you should. I tell people all the time. I was at an APTA New Jersey student event this weekend, and someone said, why should I be a member? And I said, you shouldn't. And then I paused and said, unless you understand what you are buying. Membership is a how. Membership is a how, not a what.
Right.
Netflix isn't a membership organization. Membership is how you get access to the content.
Yep.
Netflix is in the boredom reduction business.
Right.
You're in the feeling business. So if someone goes into and pays money to APTA and says, I need to make sure I get and I think I did the math, it's X number of dollars to be an APTA national member and then a state member. And then if you want an academy or whatever, let's say it's $500. If you're waiting to draw the direct line between pay $500, put $500 in the Coke machine and get $600 worth of value out, I need to understand what you value. Right. I do it because I'm a joiner. That's in my DNA. I like going to the events. I got buddies who were like, wouldn't catch me there on my last day. Get it? Neither of us are wrong. But if I keep barking at him because you got to join because it's your duty, that's Newton's law, man. You're going to you're pushing on the wrong pain point.
Yep.
I think I said it this morning. Someone asked me, Tony Meritato asked me, why do people go to CSM? And I said, great question. I said, I think I settled on it's more like a carnival. It's not just roller coasters or teacups, that's for the person who values. Carnivals are smart. They have teacups because they're like, well, if someone values teacups, we got those. If someone values fried foods, we got those. If someone values games, we got those.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into APTA because you're like, I'm going to get my 500, I'm going to pay $500 every year. I'm going to get this out. I need to understand what you think you're getting. This is a misalignment. I thought I was going to get immediate relief from my billing. Well, I don't know if APTA, I don't work for APTA. I don't know if APTA ever said that. I'm pretty sure they didn't because this system sucks. I'll say it. It sucks, but so does gravity. And I can't change it, right? So so let me ask you this. This is an unfair question. I'm using air quotes. It's an unfair question. But if you had a magic wand, what is the first system redesign that you would make to actually relieve burnout and frustration at a practical level? You got a clean whiteboard. What would you do? What would you do?
Yes. I mean, first and foremost, I think, let's not downplay who we are. We are doctors of physical therapy, right? The thing that boggles my mind is, why do we still need a referral? Why do we still need a signed plan of care? That would be my first thing is, let's eliminate that, because that's where a lot of us in private practice, we spend a lot of our time tracking down plan of care. Doctors don't read them. I haven't talked to a single doctor who said, hey, I read your plan of care. I love it. We have to track these plan of cares down to make sure that we get them signed within 30 days, right? We walk into the office, we're like, hey, it's day 29. The little MA sitting at the desk, she scribbles it. Here you go.
What would that remove?
A lot of burden. Don't need a referral. And I've talked to, so I have a direct line to HHS right now. So I got to tell you a little funny story. So 7-8 years ago, let's call it 7-8 years ago, good friend of mine, he's a car dealer in town, great guy. He invited my wife and I to a polo match. Well, at that polo match, Dr. Oz, big fan of Dr. Oz. So I walk up to Dr. Oz like I normally do. I'm not shy. I'm like, hey, can we talk? And he was very polite. He sat down with me. He talked to me. We talked about wellness. We talked about healthcare. We talked about all kinds of things, right? We hit it off. And we remembered that moment. And when he got appointed the head of CMS, what's the first thing I did? I reached out to him.
Yeah.
He remembered that conversation. He's like, oh man, I remember that day. So what does he do? He puts me in contact with his deputy director. He's the guy that does policy. This is the guy you got to talk to. You have great ideas. Talk to this guy. So we've been in communication. Like, he gave me his email address. He gave me his phone number. He's like, hey, let's talk about these things. So, that's one of those moments where, okay, use those moments to your advantage. Use the people that you've met through your years of contact. Use that to your advantage. But these guys, when you're talking to them, they have no idea what we do. None. And it's not, and again, I'm not putting blame on anybody. What happens is these guys get replaced, right? Sure. So let's say we're doing advocacy and we're beating the bush and we're talking to Congress people. And, my best friend is Mike Aradopoulos. Shout out to Mike. Mike is really attacking healthcare right now. He said, Steve, give me a year. Mike used to be the president of the Florida Senate. Mike's a good guy. Mike knows. Mike gets stuff done. Mike's very hard to be bought, right? So he's really pushing the envelope now on healthcare for me, and he's working behind the scenes. And I talk to Mike at least once a week. And his wife is she walked into a position. She was an internal medicine doctor, so she's now the head. She's actually our acting Surgeon General of the United States. So had dinner with them the other night. She walked into that position. It's not going to be a full-time position, but again, she's got to be careful because she works for HHS. She's working directly at Kennedy Jr.'s side, so she can't give me an unfair advantage. But these are things that I can do to kind of meander the past. But what I've found over the last year since Mike's been in office, nobody in Congress, nobody who's making these policy decisions really has a fair shake as to what we do. We're still looked at as an ancillary provider. We're still looked at, and I hate to use this word, but I'm going to use it anyway. 2 words, 3 words: glorified massage therapists. That's the way they see it. Oh, you guys are the people that rub people, right?
So how do we change that?
Numbers. We all have to start.
Numbers of what?
People, us, therapists.
To do
we
what?
need to wake up.
Who? We need a what? And a how?
Yes. So writing your Congress people, in those explanations, we need to include, this is what we do. You know, we're movement specialists. We're not massage therapists. We're not this. You know, and again, let's go back to your question that you asked me. If there's one thing I could do. So the plan of care that's a simple fix, right?
Got it.
And I can't talk too much about this because I'm in the early stages of developing this right now. I've got NDAs and all that stuff, but we need to prove outcomes, and not just prove outcomes, because I can tell you our patients get better and we say, but how can we extrapolate that to a dollar amount, downstream cost savings?
Photo, right? I mean, there are ways to do that.
Correct. But it has to go one step further.
Okay. To what?
Photo's great. You know, we can say patient went from this to this, but let's look at data. Let's look at real data. If that patient was discharged, and I don't even like doing the word discharge. I don't think patients should be discharged from physical therapy. I think you go to your dentist every 6 months for a cleaning. You should go to your physical therapist for a checkup, right? Let's check your balance. Let's look at, especially patients over 65, high fall risk. You know, they've got diabetes. They've got all the risk factors.
So hold on a second. Before we go too far down, I want to make sure I understand so I don't get lost.
Sure.
We need physical therapists in the wild, if they're associated with the group or not. We need a lot of people to do a specific thing.
Yes.
Does an APTA do that? They have apps. They do this thing called the flash action strategy. They've been doing this. I can only speak to you. I've been in a PT for 10 years. They've been doing that. So why hasn't
but they're only one organization doing it. And I can't speak.
Wait. So is it the number of organizations or the number of people? Because a second ago you said people.
It's grassroots. That's the only thing we get done. And here's what I'm going to tell you about the APTA. So they may be fighting behind the scenes for us. They may be doing this. They may be doing.
I don't know if they're fighting behind the scenes. They're pretty.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. We don't see everything they do when they're in DC, right? We don't see the conversations. We don't see what's being discussed at the table, et cetera, et cetera. We cannot. So I'll tell you. So in 2004, right? Let's go back to 2004. I just opened my private practices. So I had 3 private practices, opened them in 2001. I had 3 private practices. We got hit back to back to back. In 6 weeks, we had 3 hurricanes, right? Just devastated this whole area. I live on the Space Coast. We're right near Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all the rocket launch. There's a rocket launch that pretty much goes up every day now. We're so immune to it. We're like, oh, look, another rocket. But, you know, 3 hurricanes back to back to back. I remember watching the National Guard coming in here in trucks and in truckloads, and people were walking around in a fog, waiting for the government to show up to help them, right? They tell, you know, you live in Florida, they tell you, prepare, right? Get water, get batteries, get a generator, do this. I was prepared, right? So I'm not walking around. I'm driving around saying, you know, my therapist, we were out of work for almost 3 weeks. I told my therapist, hey, if you want to work and get paid, come in here. I had the water guy, Zephyr Hills. I had him drop off. Big shout out to them. They came and dropped off, I don't know, 100, 200 big 5-gallon jugs of water. And I had my staff going around to our patients and delivering and all that stuff. But the point of it being is the amount of people that were walking around in a fog bank. And that's where we used to be in apathy. I would say physical therapists, we were in a state of apathy 5 years ago, right? I see anger, and you see it in the posts, right? We're getting angry. That's a step up, and that's where we need to be.
I disagree. Not to split hairs. Apathy's worse. If I'm actually angry, it shows I want to still engage. Apathy is worse. That's what I'm saying. We were in apathy. We're in anger now. That's better. No, I think it's. Oh, sorry. I agree with that. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, we need to get angry. We need to get angry.
So I can see so you're showing me, and this is good. You're telling me and showing me a story of what happens when we don't do a thing and the result of.
Yes.
So what do we need to do? Because so far it's get PTs to have a voice so it's frequency, intensity, time, type, volume, and progression. These are exercise principles, but those are also communications principles. So correct. Frequency, how often you do it, intensity, the passion with which you do it, intensity, time, type, volume, and progression.
Yep.
APTA has been doing this. Why hasn't it worked from your point of view? If that's what we need to do.
Yeah, without being inside the APTA, I can't tell you. But all I can say is from my chair looking in, I don't see that anything has made that change. And the only thing I can put on that is people in those spots change every 2 years, every 4 years, every time a new administration. So
you're saying on the receiving end of
yeah. So it's a constant. Yeah. It's a constantly evolving process.
The only constant is change.
Correct.
In terms of those people.
You get new people. So here's what I can tell you though, as patients go, patients are waking up, because what's the first thing a patient does? They call their doctor and they say, hey, skip the MRI, skip the x-ray, just send me to my therapist, right? We've done a great job of waking up patients. Now we need to wake up the policymakers, right? Okay. And
how will you do that?
By communicating with the policymakers, by getting the inside scoop. These people are, it wasn't hard to find the deputy director of CMS. I'm not saying that we need to
but you found him. So my question is, so now you identify your audience.
Yes.
And we go back to what I did, right? I know who I'm talking to.
Yep.
I have to deeply understand what bothers them, what their hopes and dreams are, and what their frustrations are in terms of like the policymaker. Typically, I don't have a lot of advocacy experience, do have a lot of communication experience. I have to understand what makes you tick.
Yeah.
Right. And then I have to understand what I bring to the table. And where your goals and frustrations cross, if you look at a Venn diagram, and what I can bring to the table, that is our why. That's where Simon Sinek starts.
Yep.
Says, now that I have a why, when I walk in, now you hear your frustrations and goals coming out of my mouth. That's when the other person starts nodding.
Yes.
So I guess I'm just like, would you do it more frequently, more intensely, more often?
Yes. All the above. Start with your local representatives.
So it just sounds like you're saying I would just do it more and I would do it better. I don't understand how.
Yeah. Emails, phone calls, getting involved.
So hold on a second. So I'm a communications consultant. Email. Yep. Good. That's specific. What would you put in the email that is different than what APTA? Like when a CI used to look over my shoulder and be like, why are you doing that exercise? I'm like, I don't know. It's on the protocol. Not a good answer. So if I just said email, I'm like, not enough. I'm trying to see what I'm trying to do is have you show me your work. Like show me your thought process. So emails, great. APTA does that. But how would you do it differently? More often? All capital letters?
No, not everything? Yeah. So good point. The first thing I would do is start asking a question. So one of the things that I've done, very successful action, let's talk about insurance companies. Let's talk about Blue Cross Blue Shield. I had a really hard time getting in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So what's the first thing I did? I picked up the phone. I said, hey, you're down the road from me. Can I come up there and talk to you?
Who do you call at Blue Cross Blue Shield to do that? Like what is
I mean, you have to, it's a system. You got to go through the number.
Now I understand the
is, yep. And you can find out who your local rep is. Every insurance company has a local rep that's assigned to your area, right? So you get a hold of that person. You drive to them, you meet with them. Here's what physical therapy does. Hey, can I give you a demonstration? Can I do an ergonomic assessment for your desk? I'm here to help. Oh my God, I never knew you guys did this. I told Mike that. I said, dude, I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to come visit you and Stephanie. You're going to take me into these congressional offices, right? These guys that sit on Ways and Means, these guys that sit on Energy and Commerce. I'm going to do an ergonomic assessment for them. I'm going to sit down and talk to them. I just need 15 minutes. Let me tell them what physical therapy does, because a lot of them don't think, and that Mike didn't even know. He didn't know. He's like, damn, I didn't know you guys did all that. Yeah, that's what we do.
So to summarize, your job is more FaceTime with the people who make decisions.
We really do. We really got to get, we have to get more involved. We've done it a very good angle with patients. Let's now do it with the people who are writing policy.
So that's your how is face-to-face and like, I like it. Show, don't tell. Ergonomic assessment is not a tell, it's a show. Love that. So you are increasing frequency and increasing the how.
Yep.
The question is, how often is APTA doing this right now? And are they doing that? So that's my point. That's one of my points, which was we have people from outside the APTA complaining about what the APTA is doing, and they don't know what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you that fair share. I'm not going to disagree with you there, but you call it complaining. I call it, we really just want change of policy. That when it comes down to it,
who does? I think everybody does, right? Both sides.
Everybody wants change.
Right. Agree. That's what we agree on. That's commonality.
Yep. And to be honest with you, I keep reaching out to these guys. I put my contact at HHS. Yep. And I did apply. So right now, for those of you out there, I believe the APTA put somebody forward. UPTA put me forward. They have not yet selected the HAC committee, the Healthcare Advisory Committee. So Dr. Oz.
HHS has not picked someone, you mean? Or
correct.
Like,
yeah, it's been delayed. It was supposed to be end of October, end of November. We want a seat at that table. Sure. So the APTA put a person forward. UPTA put me forward. My communication with them is, hey, Steve, that position, that board has not yet been filled. We're getting to it. So again, that's, you talk about action. These are the actions. We need a seat at the table, right? IHI, Institute for Health Innovation. Does anybody know who the IHI is? It's a big organization in Boston. They're the ones that write policy. When Medicare wants to change policy, they call the IHI. There's not a physical therapist on the IHI board. Why? Let's get a physical therapist on the IHI board. If Medicare is talking, if CMS and HHS is talking to IHI, we need to go to IHI, right?
Okay.
You don't want to invest in Tesla. You want to invest in the battery company that's making the batteries for Tesla, right?
Understood.
So let's circumvent.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. Is this something you think you're going to do, UPTA is going to do, APTA should be doing, or we should be doing? I hate we because I don't know who that's talking.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. I'm not waiting for, I'm on the board of UPTA, but I'm not waiting for the UPTA to come to my rescue. Now, I'm going to be part of that rescue plan, and the UPTA is really taking some very strong action right now. I'm also not going to wait on the APTA to solve my problems. Well, because our problems are our problems.
This is where we most wholeheartedly agree.
Yep.
I look at membership like I pay membership.
Yeah.
I close that tab, take a deep breath, and then I immediately continue to work on solving my own problems.
Yes.
This is what I'm talking about with logic and emotion, what I think I'm buying and what actually APTA is selling. If they're not aligned, yeah, I can see why people are frustrated. I understand that. So it sounds like you and I understand what the value or lack of value of membership is, and we're okay with having it or not, because it's a binary decision. But it sounds like you join something and then immediately start working on solving your own problems too.
Yes.
Where I am confused is when people aren't a part of something, which is 1000% okay, and they complain about the lack of results from that thing, from that gym they don't belong to, and they stand outside and yell, I don't have abs, it's your fault, which yelling, I don't have abs, it's your fault is okay.
Right.
But I'm allowed to hold up a mirror and say, this feels dumb.
Right. And I agree with you. And you know what? And that was I probably didn't convey that, but my 2004 analogy with the hurricanes, that was it. People are standing around going, help, help, help. And I'm like, hello, you should have prepped. You should have been ready. You should have known. We weren't public,
was coming. Where's the
I don't know if you have Publix up there, but Publix is the big grocery store down here. Publix isn't open. They got back open when they could, but don't wait for somebody to come and help you. Take action now. And that's what I'm saying is, as a physical therapist, I don't care if you're in a skilled nursing facility. I don't care if you collect a paycheck, because everybody should be asking right now. And I have this discussion with my therapist and I'm like, dude, I want to pay you more. I really do. You deserve so much more than you're making. But the policy right now does not allow that. Now, we do have alternate, hey guys, if you want to start doing seminars or, you want to work and do this, and I'll split that with you, It sounds like you're saying, I will show you my math. Yes.
I will open my book, but if you can help me increase the left side of my equation, I will help you increase the right side of your equation. Yeah. If you can help me increase the input, I will give you some of that output. That is the rising tide that lifts all ships.
Yeah. And honestly, here, we just had this meeting last year. We do a staff meeting every year for compliance. We go over documentation and we follow Rick's, you got to have seven principles of a compliance plan. And that's the other thing I say to physical therapists out there. And I want to say to them, listen, don't give the auditors, don't give the MAC contractors, don't give them fire, don't give them oxygen to fuel their fire.
Sure.
Make sure that you guys are staying on top of compliance, have a compliance plan. Update your policy. I just posted this the other day on the physical therapy site. And I said, hey guys, don't forget, it's end of the year. Update your policies and procedures. Things have changed.
So let me ask you this. We'll switch, but I'll sort of ask you the same question. You have described documentation as compliance theater, which is a great term. I mean, compliance theater. Even as a PT student, I knew I was like, who am I writing this for? Like, I used a different term, self-pleasuring. I was like, this feels like this is for me. It's not pleasurable for me, and no one's reading it. It's pleasurable for me. So you've described documentation as compliance theater. Great phrase. If you could rebuild clinical notes from scratch, what's the first thing you would change, or first or second thing? What would you change if you could rebuild compliance? If you could remove compliance theater, what would you make it be?
Yeah. And the problem was there where, we had to search for words. So I'm going to tell everybody out there, listen, I understand private practice is struggling right now, but if you're not using AI technology, you really need to stay, AI is not going away. It's not going anywhere. And we use AI. I use prompt. I'll just be transparent. I've done webinars for prompt, discussing prompt. There's other great programs out there. I don't think prompt is the only one out there. Sorry, prompt. But, they do have an all-inclusive tool where, I've gone in. Here's the other thing too, is, I don't claim to be a compliance expert. That's Rick's area.
Yeah, but you're smart enough to hire Rick and listen to him.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll get, it's a funny story. So you're probably you haven't been in the profession long enough to know Steve Levin. Steve Levin was the Rick Gawanda before, Rick was still around, but Steve was and Steve reached out to me. Steve was from Florida, and Steve reached out to me, and actually I reached out to Steve. Let's backtrack. So I called Steve, and first thing Steve said when he picked up the phone, his secretary got him on the phone. He goes, "What letter did you get from Medicare?" And I said,
they already know. They know why you're calling.
Yeah. I'm like, huh? I didn't get a letter. I said, I want you to come up for a couple of days and go through my practice and tell me what I'm doing wrong.
So you were preempting the letter. You were like, how do I not get the letter?
I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, we're going back to 2005 now, but and he drove up and he's like, man, I got to salute you. You're the first person that ever called me, before you received the letter. But, he spent 2 days. He told me, you're doing 95% right, but do this, right?
You could call with those 5%, right?
And then he helped me, and then we stayed in contact. Unfortunately, he passed away tragically in a car accident in Costa Rica, but he was active with the APTA. If you talk to the APTA guys, they know who Steve was, but now Rick is filling that spot. So I don't claim to know the compliance end, but I know enough to make myself dangerous. But if a physical therapist reaches out to me and says, how do I do this? How do I do this? I feel compelled to help that person, because by helping them, it only helps me, right?
Yeah.
I'm not doing the job for them, but I'm going to say, hey, if it's a compliance issue, call Rick, right? Mm-hmm. If it's something else, hey, I can help you with that. You need, hey, try this. Like prompt. I told him the other day, in and of itself, it's a vanilla shell, right? But if you go in and put the compliance feature, so there's a toggle in prompt that says you want to do custom documentation. Well, as soon as they told me that, I'm like, hell yeah, it's game on.
Yeah.
So I created templates for my therapists. So when they're doing their evals, they're doing their progress notes, they're doing their daily notes, they're doing their discharges. It's got all the Medicare stuff built into it, that the word salads that they're looking for are built into it. So that the AI technology then puts it into the notes.
So that's saying, it sounds like you're saying, hey, listen, make sure you're using a chainsaw, because we used to have an axe, but now that there's a chainsaw, you not using it, that's on you, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's how to go through this. That's what power tool to use to get the tree down now. But if you were able to completely rebuild clinical notes from scratch, what would you do? Like, what would you? Japanese ideas are better. For some reason, Americans are like, what do we add to it? It's like, what do we take away? What doesn't need to be there? So if you could even go further upstream to rebuild compliance theater, or I should say, change, remove, what would you do to compliance theater? What only needs to be there?
Okay, so we all agree that physical therapy saves money, right? There's no disagreement there.
No.
Now, we can get into the argument of private practice versus chain clinics versus hospital-based, and again, I'm not going to get into that discussion right now, but let's just talk as a whole, right? So we know that we save insurance companies money. Insurance companies know that we save them money, hopefully, but if I could change documentation, when I first got into this business, documentation was so that if I called out sick, the therapist who came in after me knew exactly what I was doing with that patient, right? It wasn't that I had to use the word educate or I had to use the word verbal cues or all this. It's like, oh my God, what do I got to do? It's very time consuming. Now AI has helped with that because my therapist, when they walk out at the end of the day, their notes are done and I know those notes are compliance and I can run reports behind the scenes to see what they're billing, how they're billing. Are they underbilling? Are they overbilling? And I can have those conversations with them. But really documentation, the 10th visit progress note, let's go there. Really? Do we need a 10th visit progress note? I mean, I get it.
It sounds like everything you've said so far, correct me, make it lighter, simpler, make it more like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? I was very confused when I was a student. I'm like, who am I writing this for? And they're like, for the EMR. And I was like, no, that's not a who, that's a what. Yeah. What are we doing for? And then I was explained in not so many words, in case this is literally what I was taught. Write as if you're going to read this in court. And I was like, what are we talking about? I'm going to write 10,000 notes in my career. Maybe 2 are read in court. I don't know what my batting average would be. That's what I'm doing all this. And that's where I think your phrase compliance theater hits the nail on the head. Oh, this is performance. So it sounds like faster is the outcome, but lighter's a good word. Simpler. Like, what's the point? Understand what the point is for first. Who's the who is reading this? It sounds like it's for, and you can make one piece of content, right? I mean, whoever called EMR or notes content, but it should be for the next therapist. It should be for the continuing medical record for the patient. So in case that follows them, the next therapist knows what's going on. And tertiarily, it should be to defend really what it is. It's defending what we're doing, not explaining it, right? Because when someone says, write this as if you would be okay with it being read in court, I feel like I'm immediately the defendant. So it's change it from defense to not offense, but explanation, like a useful tool instead of a necessary compliance theater. Right.
We should have the ability to put our hands more on patients and educate our patients rather than sitting there burying our face. Because I do consulting. I go around and I see. I don't do as much of it as I did previously, but I'll go into clinics and what's the therapist doing? They're buried in their computer. It's like, really? I mean, that just, unfortunately, it deters from what we're really trying to accomplish. And that's outcomes.
Don't disagree. All right. That makes sense. You said fragmentation is hurting the profession. I don't disagree. Yes. But starting a new organization could be seen as adding to that. How do you reconcile that tension? I don't disagree with starting a new association. I'm just trying to...
And I think in the UPTA, we're not going away. There's been things that, you guys will be gone in a year, you'll be gone in 2 years. Now, the board of the UPTA, it's a constantly moving target. There'll be people that drop off and people that drop in, but our intentions are good. And, when you put a group of people together who have the same goals, they want the same outcome and they're working together, we're not going anywhere. So the UPTA, yes, does it, but it's like the guy down the street I always tell my therapist, I'm not going to make you sign people come in and go, do you have a non-compete? No. Right. You want an open clinic? I'll help you open the clinic.
Right.
Right. Because competition's healthy. And if you're going to do it right, I'm going to show you how to do it right.
Right.
And then we'll work together because that's only going to help me in the long run. Initially, I may lose patients to that clinic down the road. But overall, and I've seen this happen, when I first started this, the building I'm sitting in, I started in 2002. There's now 4 more PT clinics within 3 miles of me. And I'm seeing more numbers today than I was back then.
It's a good thing, right? Like
people know physical therapy, right? Everybody needs it.
If it wasn't needed, they wouldn't be able to open because they have to pay overhead and people.
Yeah, right. And
so what are the goals of UPTA? They seem similar to APTA, and even if they're the same, that's okay. How will they do them differently? So when UPTA was formed, that is what I asked, and I was told it's coming.
Yes.
And it might be somewhere that I haven't seen, but as Katie asks, does UPTA have a public-facing information that all PTs and PTAs can access without being a member about what will you do? These 3 questions. What will you do? How will it make my life better? In what ways? And then what do I need to do to get it? I'm getting membership or whatever. Sure. But how? Vision without a plan is a dream. right? Like, so help me understand how we go from frustrated to alleviated. And this might be an unfair question to ask you because you aren't an association. Like, this is a bigger thing. So, but why do you belong? How do you see it as a road to what you want to get to?
Yeah. So our biggest goal right now, we have targets, but our main goal right now is policy. We want to change policy, right? So our first move that we did, and kudos to Scott for doing this, but he found a law firm that deals in this, and we filed a federal lawsuit against CMS. Welcome, hey, Kennedy Jr., welcome to your new position. Here's a lawsuit from and I'm sure he's not reading them. It's some lawyer somewhere doing it or whatever. But we don't have the ability to, we can say, I don't want to take Medicare, but we can't technically opt out of Medicare, right? So that holds us accountable to still being an ancillary provider, right? So when the lawyers reviewed the policy language, they said two things. It violates the Commerce Act, right? Free trade, the ability to see patients without restrictions. And number two, it violates the Fifth Amendment. And they said, this is kind of a no-brainer. Now, typically when these things happen with CMS, we're going to go to the table and there's going to be some type of mediation and we'll meet in the middle. But hey, if a doctor can opt out of Medicare, not take Medicare, and then still charge what that doctor wants to reasonably and necessary, absolutely, we should be able to do that. So, that was our first step is.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So you've done that. You've taken a very, very specific action.
Yeah.
Kudos, like no notes.
Yeah.
My question is, in 3 years, if that lawsuit doesn't produce tangible results that your members can see, are you now in the same boat as APTA where you're standing there saying, we did stuff, and the members are like, keep dropping $150 a year, but nothing happened, and then you have to say, don't hate the player, hate the game?
No, that's the risk. I'm a risk taker. My wife, we like to go to Vegas. My wife's a gambler, right? She'll sit at a blackjack table all night.
No, I understand. But is that what you would say? Hey, like,
yeah, no, I would not say that. But again,
what would you say then? What would you say?
We're not going to take no for an answer. We're going to get an answer on this. The attorney's pretty, it's going to go to mediation. Something's going to happen. It's not
right? Like,
no, it's nothing in life is guaranteed. We may lose the case. We may lose the case horribly and we fall flat on our face.
And trying is fine. I'm down with it.
Yeah. And we have other avenues behind the scenes on where we're going to evoke change. We just submitted a CMMI, right? So Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation. So to my knowledge, somebody can correct me on this, there's never been a innovation. Basically, I guess we could call it a test pilot where does physical therapy save money, right? So I'm laying there one night and I'm like, what I normally do, I staring at the ceiling going, what can I do? What can we work on? So I got up and I looked, and that's how I found the IHI, right? Because IHI works directly with CMMI. And I sat there most of the evening and typed up a CMMI where I want to do a pilot study with physical therapists, right? I want physical therapy private practice in the United States, take a pilot project. Now, I don't know if this is going to get approved, but again, if first you don't succeed, try again. I'm not going to let it fall on deaf ears. I can keep resubmitting and resubmitting and resubmitting. So I ran it by the board, and the board said, yeah, this is great. Let's do it. So we submitted it on behalf of the UPTA because we felt UPTA would be, and we submitted it to the powers that be, and ta-da, it got submitted to CMMI. Now I hope that goes through, and then we can start looking for private practices because it's going to be very specific and they're going to track data. And we're going to see, does private practice versus something else, what are the hospitalizations? What are the opioid use? What are, falls, et cetera. But these are all the things that we're doing. We're navigating. Do I know if the APTA is doing it or not? No, I don't. I don't know what they're doing. They may have. I know that they did put somebody forward for that HHS hack board, which is good. These are all good things that we can do, but we have to keep chipping away. We cannot be complacent. We cannot be complacent.
All right. So let me ask a more fair question. A young PT comes to you and says, I'm disillusioned. What's the point? Why should they believe in UPTA, and what would you tell them it offers that another organization doesn't? Essentially, what do you do? How does it make my life better? And then what do I need to do to get it? How would you explain it in their terms?
Absolutely. I actually just had this happen. I take a lot of students, right? So I just had 2 students. My student just left in early December. She's going to be a great therapist, by the way, and hopefully she's watching this. And but I just had this conversation, and I told her do both. Join the APTA, join the UPTA, join both. There's no harm in that, right? But again,
and then do what though? But what? Why? That's not a normal response. I like that. Why do both? Yeah. What should she do next though? She's got to do something. Taste.
Yes, and be active.
I tell you what organization you're in, and then ask what are the free resources I can do. Join every free committee, get every email, and then just taste, and then slowly unsubscribe to the ones that you're like, eh.
Yeah. So she was at my side for 12 weeks. So I taught her through tangible action. Right. Okay. She was in on the meetings. I let her sit on some of the discussions that I had with my contact up at HHS, and she got to see, and she's like, oh my God, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. But it was awakening for her because, and nothing to the universities. I mean, I'm not against that, but she's like, you guys should teach a class on this. You guys should teach a class on, and how many students, I don't know, maybe you know this, Jimmy, how many PT students do we have in the country right now that are in school?
I think there's 10,000 graduating every year.
Yeah. Could you imagine if every one of those 10,000 were to write a letter or get involved? And I know the APTA is working on doing that with the students and stuff like that. But
right. But so this is where I get to step back in and say, that is very simple to ask. That is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
You've posted something on social media. Anybody has. Getting even people to click like, even if they agree with it. So you saw it, you agreed with it, but you didn't do anything about it. Why? Because attention and time are finite. So it is, I do not disagree, but I will say it is simple. It's just not, even if you have 100,000, do the math on this. Let's say we have 100,000 paying APTA members. Go to their YouTube channel. They don't have 100,000 subscribers last time I checked. They don't have 100,000 anything, because getting people to do one extra thing is simple. Just do this one thing, because it's never one thing. It's do this one thing now, and then another thing, and eventually it's not that easy.
Nope, I get it. I've got 13 physical therapists.
Yeah, good luck.
Trying to get them, hey, guys, take time out of your day, and hey, I need you to send this email, right? Yeah. So behind the scenes, that's what the UPTA is doing. We create links, we make it easy. And, and APTA does this too. And by the way, when APTA sends out that link, I'm still filling out the APTA link as well.
Because you said numbers. Because it kind of doesn't matter who they're right. Yeah, agree.
It's volume. It's volume. That's what we need to do. We need volume. And again, yes, I agree with you. And I think both organizations serve, a purpose. I just want to see more collaboration. That's my biggest thing is I just want to see us come together as a profession. I want to see, because here's what the policymakers want, and the insurance companies want. They want us to be disagreeing, right? Because it causes weakness. And when you have weakness, they pretty much win, right? These insurance carriers, it's not getting easier. I opted out of UHC and Optum, and I actually know physical therapists right now that are getting audited. This is disgusting. And this is, another thing, not to get into a legal argument, but I got a therapist right now. She's in Southern Georgia, and the poor thing, they're going back 7 years. So she's been out of network since day one with United Healthcare Optum. They want retroactive payment. They haven't even seen the damn notes, but they're saying it wasn't medically necessary and we want all this money back. So she's like reaching out to me. What do I do? Yeah. And I'm like, you got to fight it. You got to fight it, because if they get what they want, and, and I could tell her, hey, just stop taking UHC patients, but that's not a win. It's like that's on the patient, but that's where we need policy. That's where we need to fight back and say, and I told her, I said, we need to band together and fight this. There's basically what Optum is trying to do is, and I know this is coming from me too. I opted out of Optum UHC because I didn't want to accept the measly amount of money that they wanted to pay me for a visit, because it's not worth my time, energy, or effort. But I know now those patients are still coming to me because they want a good quality service. Yeah. And UHC Optum is now paying me twice what they would have paid me if they would have just come to the table and sat down and talked to me. Mm-hmm. At some point, they're going to audit me. And they're going to want retroactive payment, because that's their way to scare you away so that you just drop them, because they don't want to pay that. right? Let's be honest. The insurance company's job is to keep the money in their bank account.
That is right. Understanding the physics of the environment you're in is terribly important. And understanding what their goals are and how and what your goals and where they are aligned and where they are not aligned. We got about 6 minutes left. I want to be respectful of time. Last question, then we'll do the parting shot. So last question is, what does success look like in 5 years for you? Not just with UPTA, but like what would success look like in 5 years? Something like realistically, right? Like this is no magic wand, but like what would you sit down in 5 years and say, yes, we have achieved success, and I'm purposefully leaving that open-ended.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not stopping. I've got another clinic I'm opening next month, February. Hopefully, if the contractors can get the build out done, we're opening. So I'm not stopping. I'm not letting reimbursement. I'm not letting policy. I'm not letting audits. I'm not letting that get in my way. I'm still doing what I'm doing and providing a good service. And, we just have to keep fighting the good fight. And, my success for me is to not give in. I left the profession for a reason. I felt burned out. I was just like toast. I wanted to go do something else. I went and worked for a stem cell company. Then I ran an orthopedic company. And then I went to work for a hospital system. And honestly, my true passion was like, there's still work to be done. So crazy me in 2022. Hey, let's scale 3 clinics in 8 months.
Yeah.
You're out of your mind, right? Got it done. But again, success for me is taking care of the people. We have a family here, right? I've got therapists that worked for me 20 years ago that as soon as I popped my doors back up, they were like, I want to come work for you. To me, that's success. I want to build an environment where physical therapists can come in and they can treat autonomously. They can treat the way they were taught, and we can continue. I mean, nothing like the daughter who brings in her mom, who's 94 years old, who's got her first case of vertigo, and she's like, the world is ending. And she walks out on visit number 2, and she comes in on visit 3, and she kisses you on the cheek and says, you saved me. I'm so much better. Thank you. And that's why we do what we do. So to me, success is putting my hands on more patients, spending more time with the patients, less time documenting. These are all changes, but really as a group, that's where we need to come together. We need to come together and say enough is enough. I'm not taking it anymore. And I see lots of posts on these different pages about, we need to start a union. We need to start a union. So that's something else I'm working on. It's not a union. It's an independent practice association. And there's a few of them out there right now, but we're in the process right now of building that independent practice association, but we have lawyers involved, which takes time, energy, and effort, because we want to make sure, because we know as soon as we start that IPA, and it's been done in general physicians, it's been done with OBG. My good friend who's an OBGYN down the road, he said best thing he ever did was he joined that practice association. And the main thing you got to be careful of, with collective bargaining, you can't just go for higher reimbursement. You got to do other things. You got to do compliance. That's where we bring in other people who and we create a newsletter, whatever we do. But it's in the infancy stage now, but we're going to run that through as a separate division of the UPTA, so that we can give something tangible to the physical therapists and say, hey, belong to this IPA, and we're going to go to bat for you on reimbursement. But it's a big, as most people can tell you, that's a huge uphill battle to take on. So we want to make sure that we have all the infrastructure in place first, that we have the attorney in place that is going to make sure, because when you start hitting the insurance companies where it counts in their pocketbook, they're going to fight back.
Sure.
So we know that, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. Is I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep working tirelessly.
All right, let's do the parting shot.
This is the parting shot. One last mic drop moment. No pressure, just your legacy on the line.
All right, parting shot, powered by U.S. Physical Therapy, nationwide network of clinics focused on developing clinicians, not burning them out. Leadership tracks, mentorship, career growth, and the stability to build your future in PT. If you want a place that supports how you want to practice, visit usph.com. That is usph.com. Also, do want to thank our nonprofit of the episode, Team Gleason, a nonprofit founded by former NFL player Steve Gleason after his ALS diagnosis. Their mission to help people living with ALS stay independent, connected, and purposeful for as long as possible. That means providing advanced communication devices, mobility gear, personalized tech, and even life experiences designed to give people living with ALS more control over their lives. Until there's a cure, there's Team Gleason, no white flags. Learn more at teamgleason.org. All right, parting shot, your last chance for a mic drop moment, soapbox statement, whatever you want, give it away.
Yeah, it's all about collaboration. It's all about, like I talked about, we need to join together. You're right on the when we take jabs at something on social media, it's basically out of frustration, and it's really what we want to do is we want to evoke change. We want to wake people up. It's not that again, the APTA serves its purpose, the UPTA serves its purpose. We're all on the same path together, but that's the main thing. Dentists, doctors, I'm friends with all these people in the community. They collaborate.
Yeah.
The PTs down the road, they don't want to collaborate. Why do we not do that? There's plenty of business to go around. We really need to start. Every setting needs to come together. We all need to come together. We really need to just start waking up and saying, we're done.
Yeah. As the Beatles,
real change is going to happen.
As the Beatles once said, come together right now. As former APTA President Sharon Dunn said, we are better together. Steve, appreciate the time. Thanks for the hour. I loved it.
Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it. Let's do it again.
All right.
That's it for this one, but we're just getting warmed up. Smash follow, send it to a friend, or crank up the next episode. Want to go deeper? Hit us at ptpintcast.com. Or find us on YouTube and socials at ptpintcast. And legally, none of this was advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. See, Keith, we read the script. Happy now?